Our region's fire service split into several agencies, each with its own jurisdiction. I'm Kristen Remington.
I'm Landon Miller. Thank you for joining us tonight. Now, at the time, it was a solution to some major budget issues and political disagreements. This all following the recession.
But now, 6 years later, we have a split fire service, and it's causing problems that some officials say could cost lives. Ariana Bennett has been looking into all of the angles of this very issue and possible solutions for the last few weeks now. And Ari, what have you learned?
Well, trying to get all the different perspectives and details on a regional fire agreement is a lot like trying to drink from a fire hose, so to speak. But there is a basic consensus, echoed by just about everyone I've spoken to on this issue. While our first responders and dispatchers are doing their best to get help to people when they need it, they're hampered by a flawed system that's causing delays in responses. While they don't all agree on how we get to a better system, they do agree that we need one. And here's why.
Car accident that happened, you could virtually see where it was.
Truckee Meadows Fire Chief Charlie Moore points out the site where just weeks before a car rolled over, crashing and injuring 2 people. Truckee Meadows Fire Station 13 in the Stead area is about 200 yards away, but they weren't initially called to respond because the crash site is technically in the city of Reno's jurisdiction.
Well, everything that you see here is city of Reno.
Reno dispatched its Engine 9 from here. A little over 8 minutes later, Reno arrived on scene. In the meantime, Reno made a call to Truckee Meadows asking for mutual aid. By the time that call came through, TM's Engine 13 made it there just after Reno's did, about 9 minutes since the crash. To Chief Moore, the difference between the time to drive down the block and 9 minutes is an unacceptable delay.
Well, depending on the call, it could be a matter of life and death. Certainly in a cardiac arrest or somebody not breathing, it could make all the difference in the world.
But there's no wrongdoing here. This was a by-the-book response under our current system.
We are handicapped sometimes by the system.
Here's what Chief Cochran means. Reno, in orange, and Truckee Meadows, in purple, don't have an automatic aid agreement for calls like this crash, so there's no system to have the closest resource automatically respond. They can call each other for help separately, but that takes time, as we saw here. And time is crucial, because for both agencies, the huge majority of their calls aren't fires, they're medical.
And I'm personally aware of many emergency medical calls that have happened close to our station, and we've not gotten a call.
The issue has prompted talks of consolidation, combining all the major fire agencies, Reno, Truckee Meadows, and Sparks, into one unified service. If not that, then at least a regional agreement for automatic aid.
We are interested in doing that, and we're hopeful that we can get there in a cooperative fashion with our neighboring jurisdictions.
But there's one big sticking point. While Truckee Meadows and Sparks both have 3-person crews, Reno has 4-person crews, something its union says is non-negotiable.
That is a minimum standard, and we have fought for that since day one. That is our hill to die on.
The disparity in crew size makes any kind of regional agreement difficult. 4-person crews are more expensive. As a result, Reno hasn't been able to fully staff 2 of its fire stations for years. Truckee Meadows and Sparks went to flexible staffing to keep stations open when budgets took a hit, even though TM's union head acknowledges that's not ideal.
As far as Local 3895 is concerned, we would love to have 4-man stations. I think the perfect scenario would be 4-man stations and AVL, closest resource responds, and it's done fiscally responsible.
Do you think that's possible?
I think anything's possible.
Do you think it's probable?
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Chief Moore says his budget would have to grow 33% to get 4 people on each Truckee Meadows crew, a big ask. And there's some politics in the way, too.
It's the politics of it that really get down to the challenge.
Everything in the political realm never happens quickly, but this is an issue of life and death for people, and this needs to move quickly.
Now, it is important to note that while Reno and Washoe County are the 2 biggest players in this agreement, it would also involve Sparks, REMSA, the Airport Authority, and several others. Truckee Meadows and Sparks already have an automatic aid agreement in place. The Sparks fire chief says he is on board for a broader regional agreement.
Fascinating, Ari.
Yeah, and you mentioned so many moving parts, so many players in this conversation. Are they making progress?
So yes and no. The City of Reno and Washoe County Commission did direct their chiefs to kind of get the ball rolling on an agreement. So they did meet last month, and I'm told that that conversation went well. But I also checked back, and it turns out there's still no agenda items on either jurisdiction's agenda. So
Not yet.
we'll see. Basically, we're going to be watching this pretty closely to see if they can make this change, but there's definitely the desire to make that change.
And a lot of it really comes down to between the difference of 3-man crews and 4-man crews, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that's going to be one of the biggest sticking issues. It's tough because there's a lot of research that says 4-man crews are better, they're more efficient. That is, as he said, a national standard. But you know, Chief Moore makes the point that in an emergency, you know, when time matters, we'd rather have a 3-man crew responding quickly than no crew at all or a delay. So I think it's going to be tough. I think what's going to end up happening is probably some kind of agreement that involves some jurisdictions being okay with having more flexible staffing and possibly making some concessions about funding. But you know, there are a lot of different ways this could get hammered out.
Okay, we know you'll be following it. Good work. Thank you so much.